Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Wait a second. Okay, for my peer preference, I would like to go to the chat so my speech won't be distorted, and also for my gender pronouns, it's okay to call me he or him.
Echoing, Ron.
Yeah, wait. Sorry about that. Okay, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, as the Prime Minister of the Government of the House, we would like to start with the motion, which is that we require that environmental policy decisions be made by an independent panel of experts. So, first things first, why is environmental policy important? Environmental laws play a huge part in protecting humans, animals, resources, and habitats. Without these laws, there would be no regulations concerning pollutions, contaminations, hunting, or even response to disasters. Environmental law works to protect land, air, water, and soil, and etc. Negligence of these laws results in various punishments like fines, community service, and, and in some extreme cases, jail time and etc. Without these environmental laws, the government would not be able to punish those who treat the environment poorly. So, first question comes: why this motion exists in the first place? So, by this question, we can assume that our local government or our authority isn't capable anymore about talking about decision making or of environment policies. So that's why we are in the current need of these independent panels of experts. That's why we can conclude that this proposal occurs because of the current situation of the policy decision making, which rely to the government, is problematic. So that's why we proposing to require an independent panel of experts to decide the environmental policy. So what we mean by this independent panel of experts is that a group or an organization held by experts that are experienced in environmental issues such as scientists, doctors, and etc. to monitoring the accuracy of environmental damage. Then let them deciding the best solution of policy to be released for the government in order to fix the environmental damage. So noting, it is not that we won't involve the government at all, but here the government is only in charge of supervising the running of the rule-making procedures that observed by these experts or scientists. Because of course, the role of legalizing these policies are still in government's hands. Preferred role of scientists in the policy process is to report, interpret, and also integrate scientific results into managing decisions. So, what we want to achieve is the progressivity and accuracy of these policies, reducing environmental damage. The main goal of environmental policy is to regulate resource use or reducing pollutions to promote human welfare and or protect natural system. Tragedy of the commons in the process by which publicity accessible resources open to unregulated use tend to become damaged and depleted through overuse. So what is our urgency in this debate? We are running out of time since the environment conditions are getting worse. Slow pace of the government policies progress, but high pace of the environmental damage. That's why it is very urgent for us to have these independent panels. Because notice, in our status quo right now, the situation is very unbalanced between the slow pace of the government policy progress and the high pace of the environmental damage that exists. So, what is the problem in the status quo where government is the one who make the policies? First, too much politics included in policy making, which make it complicated in the governmental. Second of all, people trusted by government to make policies sometimes aren't expert enough in environmental issues. Also, this is related to nepotism in governmental system. And thirdly, the contradiction that happens when the government as the people who are accountable in creating, supervising the environmental policy, instead they become perpetrators of environmental damage itself. For example, deforestation doesn't take firm action against investors or companies that damage the environmental. Instead, they are taking part of it for the sake of money, for instance, and etc. Maybe the opposition might argue about the economic sector is also counted in this case. And if we follow government side of the house proposal, we are going to abandon and worsening our own economic rate. But here under government, we say that economy will still be running, but what do we change is that we want the old policies that worsening the environment to be replaced by our proposal. What we meant is that we are trying to make the environment healthier and better if even if we are still using it as our economic source of income. So what's make our proposal better than the opposition of the house? We offered that scientists, doctors, and etc. to make the decisions, right? So what makes them better than the government before them? So moving on to my arguments, why independent panels of experts will be very efficient in decision making of this environmental policy. First of all, scientists won't jump into political because they are more biased to environment. The role of the scientists in this model is to provide relevant expertise about scientific data, theories, and findings that others in the policy-making process can use to make decisions, not to make the decisions themselves or to be advocates of particularly policy positions. The assumption is that they are neither policy expert nor trained in the intricacies of environmental management. Moreover, scientists are not to become biased by involvement in environmental policy or to become advocates just like government before them. And second of all, scientists have a responsibility to make sure that policymakers understand the value of science and have access to the best scientific knowledge available. Policy decisions that are informed by science are critically important in building a foundation for for a, for a sustainable future. For example, one, understanding our changing climate and its impacts on everything from public health and safety to economic security can lead to ways to mitigate and adapt to the effects. Secondly, understanding the cause and behavior of natural disasters can help us to better manage the risk, protecting countless families, business, and etc. Understanding our long-term energy and water needs and availability and viability of various supplies can help us to safely and sustainably manage this critical resource. So, linking back to my explanation, therefore, we do believe that it is justified and urgent for us, very essential for us to require these independent panels of experts to take control and to take the command, the steer of decision making of these environment policies than the government before them. I'm proudly to open this debate.
Thank you very much. The Prime Minister spent 7 minutes and 11 seconds, 7 minutes and 11 seconds to open the case of opposition and also to respond to the case of government. I call the leader of opposition here.
Okay, try to connect to my headset and then setting my timer. Wait. Okay, am I clear? Am I clear?
Yeah, clear
Okay.
enough.
Okay, first. Sibuk masker ya?
Guys, please turn on your camera if it's possible.
We are using one device because the connection is bad here. So yeah, maybe it's
Okay.
better for us to not open the camera.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Gender pronouns he or him. Your I unmute. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Propositions mechanisms by requiring an independent panel of experts is not enough and will never be enough to actually solve the problem regarding to the effectivity of the policy and the effectivity of the implementations of the policy made by the stakeholders. Before starting my explanation, let's respond to government cases. First, they assuming that the government in the status quo right now doesn't take any firm against an actor or companies that endanger the environmental, or at least the government do not do such an effort to solve our problems. Panels, a lot of things government has done in the status quo. For instance, the government has joined the Paris Agreement. It means that the government put an effort to actually solve the problem regarding to the environment. The government trying to neglecting the fact that the government has done a lot of things to basically solve the problem regarding to the environmental issue. Second, like the reforestation, like or Indonesian reforestation, where the opposition trying saying that, oh, the government status quo is not effective enough and it's not pure enough to make a policy and doesn't implement their policy that we made. So because of that, no, I'm not taking any POI. So because of that, we believe the government is too assumptive. They're neglecting the fact that the government has done a lot of things. Second response, no step by analysis. They're trying to saying that the independent panels of experts will be better in implement to make decisions better. But panels, they just keep talking about how the policy will be made better in their set of the house, but they don't ever give us an explanation how the policy will be implemented well in their set of the house, because at the very first place, the independent panel of experts doesn't have a good relation and a good power regarding comparatively to the government. So panels, we as a negative team, we stand to not giving an independent panel of expert opportunity to make a decision. Therefore, we will stay in the status quo where the government will forever be the decision maker, but we still involve the independent panel of experts to provide an options. Panels, this is not the house stance. We do not want independent panels to take decisions. Same with the government, but we want them as the option maker only. But the one who make a decision, the one who implement the decision is the government. So in this debate, I'll talk about two things. First, the worthiness and the capability of the government, and second, how the policy looks like in our side of the house. First substantive, the worthiness and the capability of the government. Panels, let's looking on the characteristic of the government itself. First, they have power. Power is something matter in this debate. Why? Because of the existence of power, government in the status quo can handle all the policy better than the independent panel of experts. Why? Because for example, when the government China do like clean a rifle, like for instance, back there's a Chilean rifle, it's very dirty. They send an army, they send Timsak, they send many other third parties. That is to say, will hear the government. They have such a power to make every actor that is not affiliated with the government to implement their policy. It's not unjustified, because at the first place, to handle an environmental issue, it needs a lot of party, not just the government. So I'm also talking about the society panels. Society is one of the most important actors to implement what policy government has made, right? Because of the power, the government can oblige all society to do something based on the policy, that is to say, to solve the environment issue. Rather than the independent panel of experts, they don't have such kind of power. So neither the society, nor other spectrum, nor companies, nor third parties would obey them. They will be, that will be explained detailedly by my second speaker later. But we can clearly see why. Because at the very first place, the society trusts the government much more than the independent panel. Why? Because at the first place, they are the one who choose the government. They don't even know who's the independent panels, why they have a right to oblige me to do something regarding to the environmental. So because of that, we believe that the government has a power to implement the decisions that we make. Second, talk about the connections. Linking back to the previous argument, we can previous characteristic, we can clearly see because of the power, government have such a good relation to third parties like big companies, ministry, police officer, and even organization of an expert. So with such connections, the implementation of the policy taken by the government will be run effectively because of the cooperations with another actor like police, army, ministry, and etc. Because at the first place, I have told you that to solve a environmental problem, it needs an effort from all layers of the society, all layers of the stakeholders, not just the government. So there is some things that not exist in the house because the independent panels doesn't have any such connection. Okay, they have a connection, but they don't have such a power like the government did to make the society or the other actor obey what they have done, what they have prepared in their decision. Second substantive, how the policy looks like in our side of the house. panels, the propositions here hotly exaggerating why independent panels can taking a policy without really give a clear picture on how the policy looks like in the side of the house. So because of that, here I'll picture it in our side of the house, how the policy looks like in our side of the house. I'll bring three layers in this argument. First, the idea of touching all sector. They have stated in their speech saying that the economy will be ignored because of the environment. No, we don't say that. What I mean is how the policy will be the best for solution for every sector. Yes, every sector, not just environment. Yes, we do believe the government might say that the environmental policy should prioritize the environment first. Hey, panels, what the best for environment will not be the best, and it's not always be the suitable one for the other sector. For instance, the education, economy, and etc. For instance, the idea of emission trading. Maybe a lot of environmentalists outside there saying that, oh, emission trading is a form of capitalism because it's relying on the economic sector. No, we as the government in the status quo have find a solution to touch all layer of the sectors, not just environmental, because as I said before, the best for environment is not the best for the other sector. Second, the existence of check and balance. We can clearly see like the government trying to exaggerating the fact that there's a lot of political interest in the government. Panels, remember, there's a check and balance. What I mean by check and balance, there will be an opposition of the government. There will be a criticism for the government because of the policy they made. And we believe it's enough for them to criticize the government or giving a solutions. The government's trying to run from the problem that is the government is not trusted by the society. So they give the right to independent panels of experts. No, the check and balance is existing in our side of the house. So because of that, we believe the political interest is not always bad. Why? Because the political interest saying that the government always want to maintaining the seat, but to maintain the seat, they must give a best solution. They must make a good decision. So because of that, the society can choose them again in the next election. So because of that, we believe the government should forever to take a decision. So because of that, we're proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To extend the case of government and also to respond to the case of opposition, I call the Prime Minister here.
Okay, I'll set my timer first. My POI preference is just unmute yourself, and my pronoun is she, her. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. By the amount of experience these experts have, we think there wouldn't be any concerns when it comes to scientists to handle the environmental issues, since they have already done a lot of research and they stick to the independence as a scientist. And what is meant by this proposal is that we would require a panel of experts to make the policy decisions. Note that even if there is still a hand of the government as the institution who will set the rule officially, but the one who make the rule and observing the outcome of the rule on how it will giving a significant effect to the environmental issue and etc. is the independent panel of experts themselves. Because here we are focused on talking about how we can create a better environment because of this proposal occurs because of there is already worse situations of the environment, and now the things that we are trying to find is that how to create a policy that can cater all of layer of the environment, the government, society, and etc. So that is why we think in our side of the house we will require this independent panel of experts to decide the policymakers. And now I'll give some response to the opposition side of the house. Firstly, they are talking about that how this independent panel of experts doesn't have a good relation with the government, but we think that it is just their assumptions, because the independent panel of experts such as scientists doesn't actually have a really good relations with the government, and even if they don't have, by this way we can create a better relations between the scientists and the government itself. So we think that is not a big trouble that we are talking about right now. And then right now they are keep glorifying the one thing is that about the power in how government can handle the policy better. But yes, we will use the power because that power will not be wasted because we will still use power, because after the rules being implemented, government will take care any of the outcome of it, because the job of this panel of experts here is only to decide the environment and observing, deciding is it work to the environment or not, is it work for the society or not, and they are not taking any advocacy or any legislative thing, because their job is not in there, and that job is still on the government side of the house. So what we focus here is the panel of experts to deciding this, and they stated that the panel of experts don't have a power, because yes, that is not our job to have a power, because what our job is just to implement that status quo, so their concerns can be catered by us still. And also they stated that what government know what best for environment, not best to we only know what best for environment, not best to other sector. But here what we mean by here is that there must be some process in the policy making where the scientist is not a stupid person who only think about the environment. They also think how this policy will affect environment towards the society and etc. And if this environment is better, there's a lot of sectors, and if environment is good, then a lot of sectors will be influences, such as health and a healthier air and healthier water and education, and how environment can be source of concern of educations, and how the economy will be more growing better and etc. So we think that in our side of the house we have a better explanation in this. And now moving to my argument, why we will require independent panel of experts. Firstly, so in the future, the accuracy of the policy will significantly contribute towards the environmental damage. I'm sure we have seen environmental movies where there's a natural disaster and how in the end there will be a dispute between government and scientists that leads to unclear actions towards it. And I think that's actually happening in our real circumstances, where governments sometimes are being selfish for deciding a policy, while in fact that the scientists are the people who truly understand about the environmental damage itself, because of their study, research, and direct field observations and the equipments that they have. Because according to the natural environmental field, science and scientists can provide a clear understanding of the basic dimensions of environmental problems, identifying both what is known and what is uncertain. And after that, science and scientists can then describe and identify options for the appropriate solutions of those problems, some of which might not be considered by political decision makers. Finally, science can contribute to the resolutions of environmental problems by estimating the economic, social, environmental, and political consequences of proposed solutions through time and space and across population groups. And also, accordingly, scientists have been called upon citizens, government, and NGOs to predict the impact of human-caused activities on the world's climates, oceans, air, space, and other environmental component. So this is why in the real life, scientists are trusted enough by the society, so there must be no concern of them. That is what is the opposition side of the house trying to glorifying about. Even if the role of scientists doesn't mean that leads to a better policy, but at least we are already give the best effort in handling the situations. We did research by equipment and protocols that cannot be done by the government, and at least we have monitoring and proposing the best policy that we can create to fix the environment. That is what the government will never have, because they don't have a direct understanding towards science in a large and complex scale. Second of all is the future impact. Towards the environment, the effectiveness of the policy will be achieved since the one who considering the policy is the expert of the field. We think that the problem of the environmental damage will reduce. By policy made decided by expert, the procedure and the equipment will work in line as what kind of issue we put this policy to. So in the future, a healthier earth will happen. Second of all, to the society. When the environmental damage reduces, society as the stakeholder can finally feel a real impact of the actions. They can breathe a healthier air, having a better water resources quality, and etc. And for example, the ice in the Arctic can be even melted in a longer pace, and that is why we think the environment will have a better conditions. And also, This will create a win-win solutions, and a check and balance is already happened in our side of the house, because government will get back their assets from healthy environment in the future and have a better environment for its society. And how the scientist role of this to checking up of the environment is also exists. So that's why we think that in our side of the house we should really require independent panel of expert as a to consider the rule uh, and before we implementing it. So that is why we are proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To extend the case of opposition, I call the deputy leader of opposition here.
Arrange my paper first. Am I audible? Yes. Okay, my VI preference just unmute yourself, and my gender pronouns is he or him. Setting up my timer. I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So, okay, first of all, I would like to give a quick response towards the government team. Like they state about the expert. Expert is someone that already really expert in like one subject, and they have so many experience. But we do believe that expert also exists in our sides, because even the expert join if because even the expert join the discussions with the government. So I think that it is better in our side, because the government can directly cooperate with the expert itself by joining like the form of the discussion itself. And also we do believe like the decision making will be more better in our side, because like we still give chance to the expert to speak up. We will listen about the expert opinion, what's this expert opinion towards the environmental. Then we will like to do like discussions, and there's always be pro and contra. It means that there's always be critics towards the experts opinions. Like I think that the expert opinions could give their opinions, then the government will like give suggestions. I think that will be more exclusive in our set. Moving to my team arguments in this debate, I would like to give two main points. The first one, why the policy decisions will be more effective in our side, and second, why and also why there's no something wrong with the government decisions. I would like to explain about the point number one. The policy decisions will be more effective in our side, because the government will always prioritize their society, because they have obligations and it's their job. There's trust between government and society, which we do believe that it is something that really important, because like there's a transparency between the government and also the society. The society will know what the government plan, and also what the government will do towards the case of the environmental. And we do believe that we do believe that my previous speaker already stated to you why the inside the government there's already enough about the critics. There's always be contra team that will be critics towards the affirmative the pro team. And also the government job is not only about the environment, but there's other aspect and also sector like education, economic, and etc. So we do believe that the government made policy decisions about environment. So we believe that the government made policy decision about the environment. They also considering the impact to other aspect and also sector. And also we do believe like yes, we do believe that the environment aspect also impacting other aspect like the healthiness. But I do believe that it also
even these things is more exclusive in our side because the government is the one who have control to all aspect. It means that the government have a better relations towards the education, economic, or even the healthy. And we do believe that the government could directly interact to the healthiness and also the environmental because they have power, and it means that they have to control what the expert do, for instance. And also we do believe that maybe it's good for the environment but not necessarily good for other aspects. Meanwhile, in the government side, they only thinking about the environment. They didn't really considering what the impact to other sector. In our side, there's policy cycle. It's a tool used to analyze the development of a policy item. And also the policy cycle only exists in our side, but not in their side. Two things inside the policy cycle. Number one is the policy formulation, and second the evaluations. The policy formulations involve exploring the variety of options or alternative actions available to address the problem. These include assessment, dialogue, formulations, and consolidations, which only exist in our side because we're not only like when the expert speak, the government will give them opportunity to speak up. We're not only like thinking about the political interest. No, because even the government work is on behalf of the society. And also second about the evaluations. Evaluations means in assessing the effectiveness of public policies in terms of their intentions and perceived results. Policy actors seek to determine whether these measures were successful or failed by examining their impact and results. Because it's only exists in our side, we could do evaluation about our next policy decisions. I mean, like we could see what's wrong in our policy decision right now, so we could fix and make a better policy decision later on. And also second about why I will gonna prove to you why there's not something wrong towards the decision made by the governments. We do believe that there's already so many law that already exist. One of the example is Law 5 of 1990 concerning biological conservations. In irresponsible actions that can cause damage to the nature reserve area and nature conservation area, or actions that violate the provisions on the protection or protected flora, fauna, and all of the environments are punishable by serious criminal penalties in the form of corporal punishment and fines. Because we could see that no matter how good you make decision, but if the society didn't follow the law, there's always be like a problem, right? And also like yes, please.
Yeah, so how you guarantee that in your side, society will much more likely follow your regulation?
Okay, because we are the government, because we are that will work for our country, right? The government have power and also have the clear regulations towards what mistake that the society do. Like not only in the society that damage the environmental, but there's already another punishment that related to the law. And also this serious punishment is deemed necessary because the damage of extinction of one element of the living natural resources and its ecosystem will result in a great loss to the community, which cannot be assessed materially, while its recovery to original state is no longer possible. Because like example, like there's someone that do illegal logging and it's harming the environmental. The government have a tangible action to catch this person and give them punishment, maybe like jail punishment, because we have the true regulation in our side. And also meanwhile in their side they are independent expert, but they didn't have power to give punishment towards the society, because like the society right now only following the rules that state by the government, because we see that like there's police that work in the forest to check the security in the forest itself. So we do believe that it will be more effective in our side of the house. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To conclude the case of government, I call the government whip here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes. Wow, very interesting background.
Um, let me change it first.
No,
Because
it's
here
okay. It's okay.
guidance.
It's cute, actually.
So PI preference, just unmute yourself and then pronounce he or him. So I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2. So I think in this debate, we should be talking that which house provide better policymakers. Under government, we need to prove to you that the policymakers should be made by the independent panel, but opposition side need to prove that the policy decision are made by the government. So without including the independent of expert itself. But since opposition stance is including the independent panel of expert, so yeah, let's play in their point of view. So before moving on to my class and comparisons, one independent rebuttals. First, say that the independent panel of experts are the supervision, and the government are the one who give the decision. Notice panel, even if that the independent panel are only the supervision, but if in the first place, if the normal government are the one who made the policy, then it won't be effective. Because why? Because the one who made the policy are not the expertise. At the end of the day, the regulation itself won't be suitable for the status quo. Also, if the current policy that exists is enough, like what opposition has trying to explain to us, then why is the environmental issue still being a major issue in our current status quo? So we don't think that the current policy is working efficiently, because what will happen in opposition side is it will only preventing but not effective enough. But meanwhile, under Gov, we will have the commitment to continually improve the environmental performance and commitment to prevent pollution and effectively manage the significancy of environmental impact, ladies and gentlemen. So two class in this debate. First is about the policymaker, which has provide a more explanation about the policymaker. Second, about the idea of power. First, about the policymaker. Opposition stated that the policy that made by government is enough, because they keep glorifying about, oh, there is Paris Agreement, there's negotiation, and another organization that exists in our current status quo, and etc. But notice it won't be enough in order for opposition to win this debate. In order for opposition to win this debate, is they need to prove to us then why those organization is already enough, and all layers of our society will much more likely follow their regulations. What are the response is they only stating to us about the idea of power and the power of government to control our society without necessarily elaborate to us more further, ladies and gentlemen. So first respondent, then the current policy that is made by the government is not functional well, even if there's an organization that exists, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because the policymakers in government are not the policymakers in opposition side of the house are not made by the specific actor, ladies and gentlemen. They do not have the knowledge, the basic background of the environmental itself, ladies and gentlemen, and they are not made by the expertise. But why is it bad though? Because the moment when the policy is made by the officials from the government, they will have the different point of view and the different spectrum. Rather than the expertise under our side, they will be more understand about the environmental problems from the basic until the advanced level. So we do believe that under our side, it will be more effective and efficient. Rather, in the rest of the house, it will just hamper the policy rules and etc. So second of all, about the idea of power, right? So opposition came up with the idea of power, stating that, oh, the power in government is bigger. They could bring military intervention. For instance, when there's illegal logging, then they will send troops to those forests and etc. First response, the moment when the independent panels work with the government, they already have the power itself, ladies and gentlemen, because they are the one who made the decision, right? They are cooperate with the government. So, but the difference is we decide the regulation, but still we have the power because we are in the first place we are cooperate with the government itself. So of course, we will have the ability to control the society itself. So comparatively under the house, it won't be working efficiently. Why? Because they will be hampered by the decision of government itself. Like when the independent panel of expert establish making a policy, but it is rejected by the government itself, ladies and gentlemen, it will be hampered. But meanwhile, under our side, there will be no border from another actor. So what is the word under government will be look like? Under government, you will find first the effectiveness, and second about the efficiency of the policy itself. So because from the first place, the actor who made the policy itself are the one who are the expertise and have the enough knowledge and even more than the normal and the usual government official. Rather in the rest of the house, uh, there will be only a border and a hampered because in the first place the independent panel of expert could not do their job under 100% efficiently. So the idea of effectiveness and the efficiency should be more exclusive under outside of the house, because in the first place you are the one who decide the policy itself, and the idea of power also exists and more exclusive under outside of the house, because in the first place the independent panel and the government are cooperating together to make the decision. But meanwhile under the outside of the house, it will just hampering the decision making and the establishment of the policy itself, because they are hampered of the decision of the government itself. So we do believe that the independent panel of experts should be the one who make the policy decision without necessarily need like a big a hard or a big movement like what they're trying to propose, like military intervention and etc. So I'm so proud to propose.
Thank you very much. So to end the case of opposition, I call the opposition whip here.
Check, am I audible?
Yes.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Farel, you are clear.
Okay. If my voice is already clear, I would like to start my speech. My gender pronouns is he or him. My POI preference is just to unmute yourself. Starting off my speech in 3, 2, 1. Propositions are too busy to persuade us on how expert will be effective, but notice on how they forget to explain to us the most important part in this debate, which is why do they choose independent expert rather than the expert that already affiliated to the government itself, ladies and gentlemen. The burden of proof of the government, first, they should prove to us on how then this proposal would be effective. Second, what is their urgency that forced them to change the policy? Third, how will or what kind of proof that they could provide to us that this will create more good than harm? We believe that each one of the BOP is not been answered clearly by the government itself, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to my rebuttals. My first rebuttals is about the government argument about the government is not capable anymore, right? We believed in from their first speaker, they only stating that the government is not capable anymore. Notice that a single liner argument without any example would not be able to create urgency nor to prove to us on how government isn't capable on these issues. We believe that this point of argument should be kicked out from this debate. Second point of rebuttals, they state to us that we are running out of time, right? So we need to choose. We need to choose another actors, right? Their argument that said the government progress on solving the environment is slower than the environmental damage is true. But you need to realize that their argument about this will be clash to their own argument, ladies and gentlemen. Even if so, then you should prove to us on how environmentalists could do better than our government, could do better to our than our government. But at the end of the day, this question is not been answered by them. Third point of rebuttals is why should independent expert take over to create the regulation, ladies and gentlemen. The point of rebuttal about this is the government case only relying on the assumption where there is no scientist in the governments, right? Things you need to notice here is there is still scientists and doctor in our government. Second, what they need to explain is why they want to choose independent expert and not the expert which is affiliated to the government that I already stated before the BOP that I already explained before. Fourth point of rebuttals is even if expert made decision, the government will supervise it, they said. This could be count as house stance. We think that this could be count as house stance. But even if that this couldn't be count as house stance, notice on how will they even make the whole process even more ineffective and even more complicated. Not limited by that, notice on at the end of the day, their policy will related by the government, which means it is as the same as supporting to our side. Notice this argument is indirectly saying to us that this individual expert need the government to take action which destroy their own substantive, which destroy their own substantive. Moving on to my extension. Ladies and gentlemen, our stance here is we will stick to the on status quo where the government make environment policy in cooperation with the environmentalists affiliated with the government, such as licensed scientists and doctors which already have a license, ladies and gentlemen, and work for the government itself, ladies and gentlemen. About the individual expert and their individual interest. Notice on how the Prime Minister failed to explain to us from which institution, even from which world, does this individual's expert came from. They forgot to notice that they have the individual interest. What I mean by this is the example when the expert came from the United Nations, then they would make the policy based on based on the United Nations interest, ladies and gentlemen. So to compare their personal interest to our political interest in our side of the house, we believe that their side of the house, that individual interest in their side of the house would be more harmful in their side of the house. Next argument or next point is about the scope and political interest, ladies and gentlemen. Panels, in this debate, we are talking about policies, right? No matter what kind of policies that we are made, the impact will be huge in our society. We acknowledge about the argument that said expert will only have the interest to an environment, ladies and gentlemen, without any political interest. But hey, adjudicator, they are only playing on one case scenario where they think political interest is bad. As the government, your job is not only talking about environment while making policy. You need to take this into a larger scope, which is another sector, ladies and gentlemen. We acknowledge from the second speaker that they state that even if we could solve the environment issues, this will indirectly solve another problem, ladies and gentlemen. But that is their best case, ladies and gentlemen. That is not only the case, ladies and gentlemen. You couldn't make the decision without considering another sector, which we believe there is lack on their argument, ladies and gentlemen. As the government, your job is not only talking about environment while making policy. You need to take this into a larger scope, which is another sector. What is the best for the environment is not guaranteed to be the best for the economy or social, right? This proves why political interest is still okay in our side of the house. Second point is about effectivity and progress on previous regulation. We should set the stigma that where government tend to do nothing aside first. In fact, in this debate, we are comparing on which method will be more effective, right? In this debate, we should analyze the actor that has the power to regulate this policy, which in this case is the government and the independent expert. In this side of affirmative team, they rely the decision making to the expert. Meanwhile, in our side of the house is our government and affiliated with scientists from the government, right? Comparing these two actors, of course, the government has the more power and capabilities on doing and creating regulations, right? Okay, maybe the opposition would say that the government isn't progressive enough, so that they choose the expert. Notice on how affirmative team going to extreme to this, to say that our government isn't progressive enough doesn't mean that they should choose another actor, ladies and gentlemen. They should prove us so how government isn't progressive enough. In fact, as the government, we already done some progress, such as Paris Agreement and Tokyo Agreement to help fight global warming, multilateral environment agreement to help environment, and many other organizations. About policies, yes, we have made some emissions trading for would be a great example. This proves to you that that the government already made a progress, right? About the decision making panels, to unite 100 brains is of course harder than 10 brains, ladies and gentlemen. But the decision made by 100 brains will be more effective, if not more clearer. In this side, the government question to us about our slow response. We believe that it is still okay to be slow and sure. About the citizens, notice on how this policy will affect the citizens, ladies and gentlemen. If they say that our government is not progressive enough and made decision is contradictory to our citizens, then they should give us an example of what kind of protest and demonstration that already happened. But unfortunately, until the third speaker, they didn't give any example, so they failed to give to us any urgency. We believe that with the power of citizens, we could create a regulation that are not contradictory to the citizen itself, ladies and gentlemen. And we are proud to oppose. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we proceed to the reply speech. The first reply speech will be delivered by opposition. I call the opposition reply speaker here.
Am I audible?
Yes, go on.
Oh, wait a second. Setting up my timer. Okay, I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So first of all, I would like to analyze what happened in this debate. My previous speaker already stated to you how policy looks like into 3 layers. The first one is the idea of touching all sector. Second, the check and balance. The third one, the policy cycle that include policy formulations and evaluations. We do believe that 3 layers only exist in our side of the house. Notice that they state about the expert, and also we do believe that this expert also exclusive in our side of the house, because when we make a policy decisions, there's we have a room of discussions that not only one person, we have discussion like around maybe 10 or even more to discuss about the policy. We do believe that we give the chance and also the opportunity to expert to speak up, and also my previous speaker stated to you the characteristic of the government itself, which first they have power, and also second they have the connections. We do believe that power is something matter in this debate. Why? Because of the existence of the power, government can handle all the policy better than the independent panel of experts. For example, when the government trying to do clean Ciliwung river and etc. Second, about the connections, we do believe that the government have such a good relations to third parties like a big company or even like Paris Agreement, and also we do believe that the government are the one who are able to have these connections towards the other countries. Meanwhile, the independent expert, they don't have that connections towards the other country. We do believe that we also need other country help towards the environment issues in our country. And also the government team need to prove us about three things. Three things BOP of the government is: one, how then this proposal will be more effective; second, what is their urgency then that forced them to change the policy; the third, how will or what kind of proof that they could provide to us that this will create more good than harm. But they already failed to prove, but they already failed to do so. And also propositions are too busy to persuade us on how expert will be effective, but notice on how they forgot to explain us the most important part, which is why do they choose independent expert rather than expert that affiliated to the governments. We do believe that in our set we have more idea, check and balance, power and relations. Meanwhile, they only have more experience and acknowledge and also knowledge. We do believe that what main points in the government team also exclusive in our side, because they state that why independent expert made decision, then why it decision charged to the government. It means the independent expert even also needs the government help, right? Because the government have bigger power, and also they can control all sector. And notice on how the prime minister failed to explain to us from which institution, even from which world does this individual expert come. And then the government team need to prove to us why they don't have any individual interest, because they state that in government they have the political interest, and then why then this individual didn't have any single interest. And also the last point that I would like to explain is why independent panels of expert will be less effective. Notice on how independent expert didn't have any connections, which is their best scenario. They only have connections to the government. Even if so, the government even have more connection than the individual experts. Hey, judicator, notice on how they need to see the politics aspect while creating a regulations. They need to prove to us on how they could guarantee this expert can communicate to the politics sector, which is in our side, the government will easily done this. And we do believe that in our side, we have the clear law to punish someone that break the law. Meanwhile, in their side, the independent expert didn't have a clear law to punish someone that damage the environment. So based on my explanations, we do believe that we win the class. We win all the class in this debate, and I'm very proud to oppose.
Thank you very much. So now we proceed to the final speaker. I call the government reply.
Okay, wait a second. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The motion that we are debating about is that we will require the environmental policy decisions be made by an independent panel of experts. And I think that both teams agree that we want to create the best policy to taking care of the environmental conditions that will lead to the best outcome. And what is being debating about in this debate is that on how we want to taken an actions toward the environment itself, on how we want to create a better policy to fix out every environmental issues and etc. And what is being asked in this debate is that whether the policy decisions being made by panel of experts or not. So the question is here is that first, which team can bring picturizations of the current policy better, and second of all, which team can bring explanations on why we should or shouldn't require panel of experts, and the third one is that which team can give the best outcome. Let's see from the side-by-side analysis. But firstly, I think that the opposition side of the House during the debate keep glorifying why government is better in the sight of society and etc., but didn't exclusively explain how progressive is the government policy occurs in the status quo and etc. And also, opposition is too busy on point out our gap while didn't take more attention towards our arguments, because questions brought by their whip has explained by us and they don't really engage to our case. And firstly, let's see. The opposition side of the House brings up several big points. The first one is that how government have power. Second of all, how in their side of the House, they still considering experts such as scientists and etc. And how how we don't have a good relations with government and how government know what best for environment. But ladies and gentlemen, we already explained response to their biggest case, which is a power that the power will exclusively exist in our side too. Because what is mean by these motions that doesn't never understood by the opposition side of the house is that we will require these experts to make a decisions and not implementing it because the power still holds by the government itself, and we all after the policy being implemented, then after that government will taking care of the observations and etc. So the job of the panel of experts here, such as scientists and doctors, is only as the decision makers as the decision makers only. And also they think that they explaining about how why expert required by us better than what is exists with the government or inside of the house, but we think it is just same as what we are already explaining to you later on. And also we think that they don't really giving understand about our themes. Firstly, we already giving you picturizations about what is happening in the current policy, but on how it's problematic, on how it's too much politics included in the policy making, and how the sometimes in the real status quo government are contradictory towards their actions and etc. And we already give explanation on why we should require panel of experts in the scale of environment, which is doesn't get taken attentions from the options of the house. We already explained that science will describe and identify options for the appropriate solutions of the problems, which will considered by political decision makers. Finally, science can contribute to the resolutions of environmental problems by estimating economic, social, environmental, political consequences and propose solutions through time and space and across population group. And we also already explained to you on how scientists won't jump into political because they are more biased to environment. So that is why government exists to then implement the policy to the society and etc. And how we already giving you picturizations on the future impact to the environment, to the society, check and balance, and win-win solutions, and etc. And also how science are critically important in building for a sustainable future. We are already explaining it all to you. So from this case, we think that our point still stands in this debate. So because of lack of response from the oppositions and they keep, and that is why I'm proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the government reply and also to everyone. Thank you very much for your contribution in this round. Since this is a silent round, so you might directly proceed to the main room or directly leave this room and take a break, and the breaking announcement will be at you with that.
Thank you, Kak. Love
Thank
you,
you,
Arthur.
guys.
GG
Yeah.
last resort.
Thank you, Kak.